Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. See, here's this. Okay, you ready? Curtains. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bodreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktim Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 12th day of January, 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are reading in the 8th canto, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, Chapter 1, the Manus, Administrators of the Universe, text number 3. Yad Yasmin Antare Brahman Bhagavan Vishwabhavanaha Kritavan Kurute Karta Hi Atite Anagate Adya Va Yad Yasmin Antare Brahman Bhagavan Vishwabhavanaha Kritavan Kurute Karta Yatite Nagate Dyava Yad Yasmin Antare Brahman Bhagavan Vishwabhavanaha Kritavan Kurute Karta Yatite Nagate Dyava Yad Yasmin Antare Brahman Bhagavan Vishwabhavanaha Kritavan Kurute Karta Yatite Nagate Java Yad Yasmin Antare Brahman Bhagavan Vishwa Bhavanaha Kritavan Kurute Karta Yatite Nagate Java Yad Yasmin Antare Brahman Bhagavan Vishwa Bhavanaha Kritavan Kurute Karta Yatite Nagate Java. Ladies. Yad Yasmin Antare Brahman Bhagavan Vishwabhavanaha Kritavan Kurute Karta Yatite Nagate Java Yad Yasmin Antare Brahman Bhagavan Vishwabhavanaha Kritavan Kurute Karta Yatite Nagate Java. Anyone online running the chant? No. Yet, whatever activities, Yasmin, in a particular age, Antare Manvantara Brahman, O great Brahmana, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishwabhavanaha, who has created this cosmic manifestation, Kritavan, has done, Kurute, is doing, Karta, and will do, He, indeed, Atite, in the past, Anagate, in the future, Adya, at the present, Va, either. Okay, who's speaking now? Yeah, I know. Do you remember, Chad?
Yeah, I started with the last, I think.
Huh?
Started with the last, I think.
Swayambhuva. O learned Brahman, kindly describe to us whatever activities the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who created this cosmic manifestation, has performed in the past, Manvantaras, is performing at present, and will perform in the future manvantaras. I think it's Parikit speaking to Shukadev. Let's see. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said that both he and the other living entities present on the battlefield had existed in the past, they existed at present, and they would continue to exist in the future. For extra credit, what's the verse? Na tve vaham chatunasam natvam ne me janadipa nachaiva nabhavishyama sarve vayamatakparam. Past, present, and future always exist, both for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and for ordinary living entities. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam. Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. Both the Lord and the living entities are eternal and sentient. But the difference is that the Lord is unlimited, whereas the living entities are limited. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the creator of everything, and although the living entities are not created, but exist with the Lord eternally, their bodies are created, whereas the Supreme Lord's body is never created. There is no difference between the Supreme Lord and his body, but the conditioned soul, although eternal, is different from his body. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this is how the Bhagavatam is spoken. If you recall, even from the first canto, we get the sages at Naimisharanya appealing to Sutta Goswami to describe to them the Supreme Dharma. And as we go through the Bhagavatam, it's always a question and the answers. It's a series of conversations, some within conversation within conversation. So now we're embarking now on this 8th canto, and we're going to hear about the deliverance of Gajendra. We're going to hear about the churning of the ocean, which is full of all kinds of different elements. And we're going to hear of the appearance of Vamadev, if I remember correctly. And all of them are unique pastimes, and they're all pastimes in which, of course, the Lord plays a very prominent position and shows his different ways in which he interacts with his devotees, and also how he sometimes interacts with the demons. So all of this is filling out our understanding of what it means, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's interesting, every morning we sing a song, or part of a song, by Jayadev Goswami. Tabakata Kamala Bhare Nakaman Buddhashingam. And believe it or not, there's a certain meter there that we generally don't follow, but I heard Prabhupada sing it. Tabakata Kamala Bhare Nakaman Buddhashingam Dali Lahiran Nikashiputana Bringam Keshavadatanada Hari Rupa Jaya Jayadisha Hari. So I keep telling myself I want to memorize that whole song, and I haven't, except that one verse, of course. So I'm going to hope to work on it. Since I mentioned in front of the deities, it's going to have to happen now. So, Manvantara. Now, Manvantara is the period in which a Manu rules. And there are Manvantara avatars, and they're different from the Manus. The Manvantara avatars helped the Manus administer the Manvantara. They aid him. But they're different from the Manus. The Manus are also sometimes called an incarnation. They're kind of empowered incarnation, but they're definitely not Bhagavan. So we're going to hear about this series of Manus here. Swayambhuva Manu, Tamasa Manu, Chakshush Manu. I think there's one more. And what happened during their Manvantara is the highlights. And so this is a very fascinating canto, as they all are, in their own special ways. Now this one verse Prabhupada quotes, this is one of the first verses I ever memorized. First of all, this says, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. And it's easy to understand what that is. Nitya is singular, Nityanam is plural. And Chaitana is singular, and Chaitananam is plural. So that means it's simple to understand. Of all of the eternal conscious living beings, Nityanam Chetananam. There's one eternal conscious living being. And then what's the rest of the verse? Eko bahunam yovadadati kaman. Means that one is providing all the necessities for the others. Eko bahunam yovadadati kaman. Kaman in this case means what you need to survive and live. So that one verse is actually a lot to meditate on there, because at every moment we're being sustained by gifts of the Lord. And during the pandemic, everyone became very, very, very much aware how important it is to be able to breathe nicely. But where is that air coming from? Where is that facility to do that? It's coming from Krishna. He's providing that. He's providing the water. He's providing the sunlight. Everything that we need, including our own bodies, moment to moment, is being given by the Lord. So with that consciousness, as you know, just like in the beginning of the Guru Gurubhashtaka, Samsaradhavanaleka Chanaya, that one line plus one word should evoke a flood of gratitude, because it doesn't take long to realize that, yes, this material world is just like a blazing forest fire. Look at the news. It's so dangerous, and there's destruction everywhere. But the spiritual master, he's delivering like a cloud of mercy. He's pouring down the knowledge. He's pouring down the instructions on how to understand the knowledge, and the method of transcending, going back to Godhead. So that is the only way to extinguish that blazing fire. And we've all been beneficiaries of it. To the degree that we really take the gifts and use them, we'll definitely feel the benefits. So we should be very appreciative. And that, you know, is reiterated later on in the morning when we see Shri Guru Charana Padma. There's so many ideas there. And that's why the need for the preceptor, the initiating guru, and also so many instructing gurus. Just like these personalities appear. Narada Muni is an instructing guru for all of us, isn't he? There's one very touching point in the first canto. It's the end of a purport, where Prabhupada thanks Narada Muni for kindly appearing in this canto. You remember that? Because the words of the acharyas, the words of great saintly devotees like Narada Muni, what to speak of the words of Krishna, are non-different from them. They evoke their presence. In the case of Krishna, they really are non-different. Welcome, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And so we can feel their presence by the words. That's the whole point. And did you know Bhadri Narayan Maharaj he's visiting Hawaii? I didn't know. So that's why it's not as crowded as it usually is, because they yeah, and Balaram is off in Las Vegas preaching, and just kidding. Please forgive me. Oh boy, now I'm in trouble. Yeah, and he went with Ram Vilas and Prakash. So anyway, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahuman Yovadadati Kaman. And that it's from the Upanishads, of course. And here Prabhupada, he explains it. Both the living entities and the Lord himself are eternal. Right? We learned that in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjo Nityak Shashvato Yam Purano Nahanyate Hanyamani Sharire. Right? And the Jayate Mriyate Bhakadash. And so all of that verse applies as well to Krishna as well as the living entities. It's really about the transmigration of the soul. But that Krishna is Aja, Nitya, Shashvato, Purana, he's ancient and so forth. So that point that we're as eternal as Krishna is, that we've existed since we were never born, actually. We've always existed. But because of our minute constitutional position, we have the tendency to be overwhelmed by the influence of Maya. So that's the whole point of Krishna consciousness, to take shelter again of the internal energy and of Krishna, turn away from the fascination with the dualities of this world. You know, at the end of the 7th chapter, there's a very important verse there. It comes after this a verse that Prabhupada said, this explains how we came to the material world. Itcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani konteyas itcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarva sargayanti parantapa. So itcha dvesha is bewildered by desire and aversion. These two things. Itcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata. We become bewildered by the dualities of this world. The delusion of duality, you see. Sarva bhutani kontaya sargayanti parantapa. Every living entity who's here has come in here because of that. We're in the spiritual world, and somehow or other we become fascinated with the desirable things of this world, and then we have to face how to avoid the horrible things. So that's the duality, and we're immersed in that. So how to get out of it? Next verse. Yesham tvandakatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandvamohani mukta bhajantem ham jidavata. You see? Yesham tvandakatam. When your sins are eradicated. Now this is sometimes translated that you're not committing any more sins, but later on I see, as Prabhupada quotes this verse, he's mostly referring to your sinful reactions have been eradicated, which is a whole different ballpark. I mean, before that happens, you have to stop sinning in this life, of course, and practice devotion. But by freeing yourself of the great burden of your historic sins, which are keeping you bound to this world, then you can get free of the duality. Yesham jananam punya kamanam, by performing punya, and this punya is bhakti in this case. Te dvandva moha niyamukta. One becomes freed from the delusion of duality. Meaning that you're equipoised in happiness and distress. You're not trying to enjoy the enjoyable things of this world, and you're not freaked out by the dangerous things and the bad things. You're equipoised, that famous word equipoised, which no one knew how to pronounce or spell when they first produced the books. So they have the equiposed. And finally we figured, okay, equipoised. It means, exactly not, just like Haridas Thakur. He was the perfect example. There's two extremes. One of the things that you're afraid of and give you fear and you want to avoid, and the other things that are attracting you. You see? So both of those things, you have to be equipoised in both of them. Not attracted and not averse. Attraction and aversion. You see? And come to the point of detachment. Sometimes in the second chapter, Prabhupada uses no attraction, no attachment, and no detachment. Wait a minute. Detachment is a good thing. No attachment and no aversion. Itcha, dvesha. Dvesha is aversion. Two sides of the same coin. So Haridas Thakur, he perfectly showed both of those. As I mentioned in the last class, the prostitute and then Maya personified also tried to seduce him. He was unseducible. And for the prostitute, he converted her into a Vaishnavi, perfectly. See, I got to listen to him chant, the whole story. And then on the other side, he was threatened with, they tried to execute him for converting to Hinduism, so to speak, by chanting Hare Krishna. So he said, famously, I don't know the Bengali, but it's in the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. They said, you have to stop chanting Hare Krishna, and there's uttering a certain phrase to get you back into good graces. I forget what it is in Islam. There's something like that, right? A declaration of fealty to Allah or whatever it is. So he said, you can cut me up into little pieces. I'm not going to stop chanting Hare Krishna. And he proved it. They weren't going to cut him, but they're going to beat him to death. Go out right ahead. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Upatak. So he was a perfect emblem of that, and it's worth reading several nice, beautiful pastimes with him, describing his glories in the CC and more in the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. And that's why he's part of the Prema Dvani, very exalted Vaishnava. And personification of attraction for the holy name. I'll share with you a verse. There's a beautiful pastime in the Antilila, I forget which chapter, but he's meeting with Raghunath Das, who's then I think a teenager at that time, and his father, Govardhan Majumdar, and Hiranya Majumdar. His name tells it all. He's very, very wealthy. Hiranya means gold. And but they were Vaishnavas. You know, they were all Vaishnavas, and Haridas Thakur was there, and they were all said, "Oh, let's have a meeting and discuss the holy name." You know, so he was there, and he was saying how just one utterance of the holy name can give you liberation. And there was a Smarta Brahmin. Smarta means too much involved in the Smriti regulations, official, but not really, you know, not a Vaishnava. So he had some job that day, I think tax collecting or something that he was doing. So he was there. So he immediately objected. How can that be? That can't be. Just one utterance of the name. The yogis are meditating for lifetimes, you know, trying to get free and get to the Brahman and get liberation. And you're saying just one utterance of, you know, it's not. You can't chant anything once. You know, we're trying to fix that in the book. I chanted the name once. If chanting means to repeat. So one utterance of the holy name, you get liberated. You know, that can't be true. It's not true. And if it's not true, I'm going to cut your nose off. You know, he was a big offender. He's a great Vaishnava. So Haridas just laughed, you know, and the others were aghast. I don't think they kicked him out at that point, but he soon got dismissed from his job. So that induced Haridas to chant one verse and then explain it. And I took that verse, which is one of my favorites, and put the explanation and then the verse into a little poem. So the verse is like this. It's one of these far out, you know, jazz verses, Rupa rap. Anghak sanghadatakilang sakadudiyade vasakadalokasya tadanirivatamila jadading jayajitagam mangalang hare nama. And then that and the explanation goes like this. Is Buddy Maharaj's favorite song that I wrote. When the moon is invisible, withered to nil, and the sun is long gone from the sky, and it's 500 years ago and there's no electricity. When the moon is invisible, withered to nil, and the sun is long gone from the sky, then an ocean of darkness envelops this world, and the timorous fear they might die. But that thick pall of gloom is the one swept away when the first signs of sunrise appear, and the dawning of day gives assurance to all that in truth there is nothing to fear. In a similar way, when illusion holds sway and a soul has forgotten his Lord, then the darkness of ignorance covers his heart. Sin and suffering are his reward. But as soon as he says Krishna's name even once, in a manner that doesn't offend, then his ignorance flees like the darkness at dawn, and his sin and his suffering end. So there's nothing to fear, for the sun of the name has appeared with his powers divine. In your heart may that sun, benedictive for all, become fixed and eternally shine. So I guess I'm getting a little far afield here. Is there any questions so far? Otherwise, I think we'll read the next verse. Yes, Prabhu. Mike, where are the mics? Oh, he's behind you.
I was trying to understand this process of the material creation, and I was wondering if you could just help me understand the process of like this golden egg, like how it holds material creation and how does it actually work when, like with
from the point where Mahavishnu is glancing?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, it's just what I could more or less recount what's given in the Shastra, but how it happens, it's all, activities of the Lord that fall into the category of achintya, inconceivable. I mean, how do you explain how innumerable universes in their little seed form are coming out of the body of this Mahavishnu, and he's breathing them out, you know? And then I guess when they get a certain distance away, he glances, and then he injects all of the living entities that are due to be in their different universes. And then he expands as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. There's nowhere to lie down, so he exudes, you know, he perspires half the ocean there, and he's lying there in Sheshanaga. I can recount it, but how it's going on, it's beyond the laws of what we know as the laws of nature.
So is it So Brahma is also giving them their bodies, or impregnating the material universe, or is just Lord Vishnu?
The different Brahmins who can been born? Well, he has to do it, you know, he's got to produce from his mind, you know, Prajapatis.
I see. And now, let's say if he didn't, it's like, so it's based off his desires, kind of, like he wants to serve. So if he didn't have these,
who, Brahma?
Yeah.
Yes, Brahma is tasked with the difficult task of populating the universe so that the living entities who are merged in Mahavishnu, they can take their birth and start living out their karma, so, and hopefully, you know, meet a devotee and advance in devotional service. But the vast majority just become, you know, they get placed in the different species and everything, and they just kind of keep evolving.
Is there ever a point where Brahma doesn't want to do his task, kind of? And
I don't know.
okay,
I never read that.
That was just a speculation.
Sometimes takes the role of Brahma.
Yeah, sometimes there's no nobody to take that post, so he has, Krishna takes it himself. It's an essential post. But it's a difficult task. When you read how it starts, it's not like such a smooth thing, you know. First of all, you know, the Kumaras didn't want to get married. They didn't want to be Prajapatis. So they, by their mystic power, they kept themselves 5 or 6 years old. And that was disturbing to Brahma. So, you know, he becomes angry, and Shiva comes out, Rudra. And so it's a, you know, the Prajapatis, it's a big responsibility. I mean, we're just hearing, apparently, at the last of the verse, was how this is describing the daughters of Daksha and their descendants. You know, because why daughters? Why not sons? You know, because in the 4th canto, the sons of Daksha were all preached to by Narada Muni, and had him take sannyas. Daksha hoped that they would become Prajapatis. You know, he had a whole 10,000 sons, I think, first. And Narada Muni gave him one of these puzzles. You know, they were very brilliant, and they you know, got all the things right, and then they were ready to take sannyas. No, Daksha wasn't happy with that. He got very angry with Narada Muni. So he had 1,000 more sons, and Narada Muni didn't have to preach to them so much. They just said, just follow after your brothers. You know, off they went. So Daksha said, okay, forget this. We're going to do daughters now. And then Narada Muni won't bother with them. So that's all coming down from the daughters of Daksha, descendants. So the propagation, as soon as you get into that, it's a messy business. Even when Brahma, you know, was first creating, then some demons come out, they go after him. You know, he has to discard that. It's all mental, you know, bodies and everything. It's not so smooth, because you're dealing with the material energy. You're dealing with attached souls, and sometimes even with the demons, who are very disturbing. So it's a big surrender for him to take that on. And so, and not all the Brahmas are pure devotees. Some of the Brahmas, you know, in the ninth canto, you know, came out late, you know, 9th canto. That was in 76, probably, in 77. And we learn that the first birth that the conditioned soul takes is Brahma. Okay, then all of these ants and all of these trees used to be Brahma. And each of those Brahmas lived for a long, long time. The whole calculation of the chronology just kind of blows up. It becomes inconceivable. You know, there's all these living entities used to be Brahma. You used to be Brahma. Anyway, that's what Bhagavad said in the purport in 9th canto. It kind of changed everybody's understanding really what's going on. So I couldn't begin to describe how it happens, but because it's described this way in the Bhagavatam, and our acharyas have accepted it, and it's so much more complicated. But the way it's complicated is because then when we learned in 5th grade, you know, because it's all impersonal. Oh, this star exploded, and then the little chunks came in, and it took 10 trillion years, and eventually there were, you know, Paramecia developed, and then a few other, and eventually it became all by chance. No, there's consciousness at every step. There's intentionality. There's the desires of Krishna, and the inspiration coming through the heart to act in a certain way. So the best thing we should do. I mean, you know, there's a whole branch of ISKCON, the BI, who probably was, you know, eager to the Bhaktivedanta Institute, scientists, you know, and I was involved in it for about a year, you know, working with that. But you know, eventually I got called off to some other services. But it's just, you know, all we can do is read the Bhagavatam, try to understand it as best we can, and chant Hare Krishna and try to pray that Krishna will enlighten us more from within, and it'll become, you know, clear, and our doubts will be eradicated. All right, I'm going to read text 4. I'll read the Sanskrit. Shri Yudhishthira Uvacha, that's Sukadev. Manavo smin gatita shat kalpe swayam bhavadayaha adyaste katito yatra devadinam jasambhavaha. Shukadeva Goswami said, in the present kalpa, there have already been 6 manus. Kalpa is, I think, a day of Brahma here. I have described to you Swayambhuva Manu and the appearance of many demigods. In this kalpa of Brahma, Swayambhuva is the first Manu, no purport. Akutyam devahutyam cha duhitros tasya vaimanoho dharma jnanopadeshartam bhagavan putratam gataha. Swayambhuva Manu had 2 daughters named Akuti and Devahuti. From their wombs, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as 2 sons named Yagyamurti and Kapila respectively. These sons were entrusted with preaching about religion and knowledge. Purport. Devahuti's son was known as Kapila, and Akuti's son was known as Yagyamurti. Both of them taught about religion and philosophical knowledge. Text 6. Kritam pura bhagavata kapalasyanavarnitam akyasye bhagavan yagyo yachakara kurudvaha. O best of the Kurus, I have already described in the 3rd canto the activities of Kapila, the son of Devahuti. Now I shall describe the activities of Yagyapati, the son of Akuti. No purport. Virakta kama bhogeshu shataru papati prabhu visrijya rajyam tapase sabharyo vanamavishat. Swayambhuva Manu, the husband of Shatarupa, was by nature not at all attached to enjoyment of the senses. Thus he gave up his kingdom of sense enjoyment and entered the forest with his wife to practice austerities. Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Evam parampara praptam imam raja shriyo viduhu. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. Close quote. All the Manus were perfect kings. They were Rajarshis. In other words, although they held posts as kings of the world, they were as good as great saints. Swayambhuva Manu, for example, was the emperor of the world, yet he had no desire for sense gratification. This is the meaning of monarchy. The king of the country or the emperor of the empire must be so trained that by nature he renounces sense gratification. Oh God. Government collectively cannot maintain the state or kingdom according to the rules of the Manu Samhita, certainly the government will not endure. Well, sounds like it's coming out of the headlines. Democracy. I was just, somehow this came up. Some of the problem, there's one conversation where Prabhupada apparently said democracy. But that was soon changed to demon crazy, which I think Prabhupada picked up. But democracy, you know, I'm not going to advocate for democracy, but even on its own terms, it depends on the populace being informed with what's going on in truth. If everyone is lying all the time, you know, the leaders and everyone, then it doesn't work. I mean, it's not, even on its own terms, it doesn't work, and that's what we're seeing now. It's being degraded, and so there is an upsurge of you know, authoritarianism all over the world. Places that used to have a democracy have given that up. You know? So who knows what's going to happen? Everything looks very bleak socially. It should be an impetus for us to, number one, really be serious and kick out any impediments in our own advancement, and trying to give Krishna, as much Krishna consciousness to as many people as possible. Because, I mean, I remember, I've spoken this several times, you know, growing up, a main thing that I remember was the danger of nuclear war back in the 50s. You know, it wasn't so long before I, you know, was born. In fact, it was like 2 years. when they blew up the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. And there were so many movies, and you'd see these huge hydrogen bombs blowing up in the news and all these things. And it's just, it just was as scary as anything. Because what's stopping them from being blown up? Just the so-called, balance of terror, really, is what they call it. You remember the balance of terror? Okay, well, we'd like to eradicate your country, but you have nuclear weapons, so okay, we'll have this treaty. So that therefore, if we shoot ours off, then you'll shoot yours off, so we'll be destroyed, so we won't shoot ours off. That's what's kept the peace. You can see how fragile that is. You got a madman in there who doesn't care, who's ready to commit suicide. So that's where we are today. Is that there's bombs all over the place, and not only that, but we're destroying the climate. I mean, we never had this kind of cold here in San Diego. And it used to be the rainy season. Remember that? Yeah, and that's what that's why one of the circumstances that are producing these fires. It used to be rainy in December and January down here in LA also. So even if Santa Ana's come, you get the sparks, but they don't create conflagrations. So anyway, it looks very bleak. It's Kali Yuga. Things on a macro level look like they're getting worse and worse. But the only countervailing force, the only hope actually is Krishna consciousness. Because Krishna is more powerful than anyone. And even, Srila Prabhupada came to America, a few years after the assassination of Kennedy, and a few years before the other assassinations in '68, and all the riots and all those things, So he's in the middle of the hippie era, when there was a lot of searching going on. There was a receptive audience that had been created just by Krishna's arrangement. The Prabhupada came right in the middle of that and was able to plant the seeds in enough hearts where they were able to practice. The main thing is they really seriously chanted Hare Krishna. And as soon as you do that, then Krishna takes over and everything goes on. So this movement is and all this knowledge that's present in Prabhupada's books is the only hope for a countervailing force that will, that people in the Kali Yuga continue to live, and some of them, hopefully many of them, will be able to take up Krishna consciousness. But now, this fascinating, a Purana. When I was learning, I learned this when I was working on the Bhagavatam in Miami during the 80s. The definition of a Purana, it's a history. So that's why you have all of these, ninth canto especially, I think you find all of these generations described, who's coming all down. And if you look at the printed books, you'll find family trees in the back of the ninth canto, I think the eighth canto, and you see different relationships there. So that's what it means to be a Purana. It's a history. But this Bhagavad Purana is especially the history of Krishna coming down, and his other avatars, which we're going to read about, and his great devotees, and the process of devotion. So really it contains everything. The history is there, but what we're most interested in is the advent and activities of great devotees and how they interacted with people at large, and the blessings of that. So we'll have plenty of that here, and these wonderful pastimes, amazing pastimes, churning the ocean, Mohini Murti, and Vamanadev and Bali, all of that. It's all very, very instructive and inspiring and very fascinating. So that's Bhagavatam. It is filled with the pastimes and the pastimes and descriptions of the different avatars of Krishna, and of course the 10th canto, which is all about the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself and his devotees and the process of devotion. So that's why it's the pinnacle of all of the Vedic writings, as it is very beautifully said at the beginning. We can all chant together. Nigama kalpatado galitam palam shukramakaramita dravasamhyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Samalayam Mohandaho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavaka. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the desire tree of all the Vedas. And Galitam Shukamukad, it emanated from the mouth of Shukadev Goswami. And just as a regular parrot would touch that fruit and make it more sweet, so because he's such a wonderful poet and realized soul, it's become all attractive in and of itself. Amrita Dravisambitam, and it's full of nectar, and Prabhupada's immortal synonym is like a fruit that's semi-soft and easily swallowable, just like a perfectly ripe mango, you know. So what does he say? It's an imperative. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamaliyam. Drink it. Drink the Bhagavatam, this fruit. Eat it. Relish it. Rasam aliyam. Drink the juice of it. And then this word aliyam is very interesting, because aliyam we know. Aliyam means an abode. Dukkha aliyam, shashvatam. You know, this material world is an abode of misery, and it's temporary, you know. So I could never figure out, because what it meant is it should be a hyphen, laya. Just like Brahma Bhuvanaloka. If you see that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, from Brahma's realm down to there's all the places of return. So Brahma means up to Brahma Loka, you see. So it's aliyam, laya means destruction. In this case it means mukti, destroying your material attachments, going, you know. So drink it up to the point of liberation and beyond. In other words, even in liberation, then, you know, you just keep relishing Krishna's pastimes. And famously, that's, you know, a proof that the goal of our practice is not liberation. The goal is pure love for Krishna, which includes liberation. The famous verse by Bilva Mangal Thakur in his Krishna Karnamrita, Bhakti, no. My verses are going, I have to review them. Anyway, he says, dear Lord, when one achieves pure devotion, then he is able to relish the fruit, which is the vision of your beautiful adolescent form. As far as mukti is concerned, mukti swaya mukalitanjali sevate sman. Mukti swaya mukalitani sevate dharma takama gatayaksamaya patiksha. Mukti herself is waiting by the door with the anjali, ready to serve me. You see? And whatever I need of dharma, artha, and kama, they're also available. So this is proof that for Bilvamangal and all advanced devotees that mukti is not really the attractive force. That's important as an impetus to get on the path and to get serious about it. And Prabhupada, so many times that he spoke in his lectures, because he's speaking to newcomers, you know, that one should understand janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshana darshanam. That's right in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's a very important way to begin devotional service. But at a certain point, you're feeling liberated because you're no longer attached to this world. You're not bothered by that attachment. You've all become attached to Krishna. You're assured of going back to Godhead. So your real goal at a certain point becomes attainment of pure prema. And mukti is included, you know. Okay, I think we've gone long enough. If there's no questions, locally or remotely, I guess everyone's out on Sankirtan. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.